Welcome to another episode of Viatorian Voices, where our conversations on the way give witness to the ministry and spirituality of walking with youth and those who go underserved. In this episode, we hear from Pre-Associate Jen Anderson and Pre-Associate Larry Durso. Jen graduated from St. Viator High School in 1989. She began high school at Sacred Heart of Mary in neighboring Rolling Meadows, Illinois, the all-girls high school that was founded alongside St. Viator, which then began as an all-boys high school. These two schools merged into a co-ed high school in 1987, and Jen graduated from that newly co-ed St. Viator High School. Jen has worked in St. Viator for several years and currently works for the Office of the President. Larry is married to Associate Barb Durso, a retired theology teacher and department chair from St. Viator High School. You can hear from Barb in episode 14, giving a reflection on Father Curbs, and in episode 56, giving witness to association alongside Associate Kurt Sandin. Larry is a retired librarian and library manager. In addition to being married to an associate, he's the parent of a St. Viator alumnus and has also been a volunteer and supporter of Viator House of Hospitality and its participants. Jen and Larry began their 2-year formation and discernment for Viatorian Association in fall 2022 in the Arlington Heights, Chicago region, along with several more people in the Bourbonnais-Kankakee and Las Vegas-Henderson regions. This group is up for association commitments this fall and will join the community at ceremonies taking place in the coming weeks. I'm your host, Pre-Associate Dan Masterton, and I was part of this cohort with Jen and Larry. I'll be honored to make my commitment alongside them. After you enjoy this episode, help us tell the Viatorian story by rating our podcast in your favorite app, sending this episode link to a friend, and praying for and encouraging young men considering Viatorian religious life. I started this conversation by asking my guests how they decided to apply for this discernment and formation process. You'll hear first from Larry and then from Jen. Enjoy.
Barb was teaching at Viator High School, which is how I discovered Viatorians to begin with. And she became an associate, and they had asked me if I was interested also. I said, not right now. No. And of course I was working then too, which made a big difference. Then as time went on, I was getting more and more involved with Viatorians, with volunteering at Viator House. And of course Barb would go to things and take me along. And it just got to the point where I'm looking into what associates are supposed to be, what their mission is. And I'm doing this already. So why not just make it official?
Yeah.
It's my work at Viator House is part of living the gospel, and it's definitely a Viatorian thing without a doubt, and getting to know people and being involved with things like we're going to go clean up the cemetery this coming Saturday, things like that. And that was before I even applied. I would do that kind of thing. So, I was already kind of living the life. So I thought, well, let's go the next step and we'll make it official, more involved in the spiritual aspects of the community now.
What do you remember, Jen?
Well, I feel that I was a 89 alum, so I had the love and passion of the school. Our leadership was Father Charlie Bolzer, who I still today am very close with. And when I came back after college and a couple jobs and was in the area, I applied for a position at St. Viator. So I started working in advancement, and I was there for 5 years, and I loved the community. I loved to serve the community, and I started going to all these functions, Viatorian functions, and then I really thought that it was the next step in my life. I knew I wasn't going anywhere. I loved working at St. Viator, being with the children, being with the faculty and staff. So I said to my boss, I really want to be a Viatorian associate. I then started working for the president, and it just came natural to me and to be with the children, and I just wanted to serve others. And I started going to soup kitchens. I started to volunteer. I did service and song. So things that I would have never reached out to do unless I was working there. And it was a natural thing for me to just start doing the process.
So it seems like when you talk to associates, there's this common thread of having become more involved in a parish or a school or in service and justice actions with the brothers and priests. So then when we apply to become associates, we do this formation process where other brothers and priests and associates are trying to help us deepen a Viatorian spirituality that we're building toward our commitment to become associates. So how did that process go for you guys as you were doing the recommended readings and coming to participate in these discussions? How would you describe what it was like, especially maybe to someone who has never thought about it seriously or doesn't really know what goes into it? What was the process of those meetings like for you, Jen?
It was a very good experience. It gave me, a deeper look into the Viatorian community. There were people that I studied with that I never knew before, which was always very nice. I like the intimate groups. So just to read and discuss what we were, studying was very helpful to me. It's a true commitment, though. I would definitely say if you were interested in looking into it, what you put into it is what you'll get out of it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And also working for the presidents for the past 3 years under Father Dan Leiden, and in the interim, I was with Father Tom. I really got to see another side of their daily life and their daily work just through the school. So I definitely knew I was in the right place, and I learned a lot, of history about Father Curbs that I never knew before.
Yeah. What was it like for you, Larry?
I enjoyed learning about the Viatorians and learning about their charism and how they got there. I knew bits and pieces, and having with Barb being connected with Viator High School, but I never put it all together, or all that extra information that I didn't know, and found the readings to be wonderful. They were really cool, and then the discussions of those readings helped to bring it all together into one logical piece. And so it's I feel like I have much more of a foundation behind what Viatorians are, who are to be, and it helped considerably like that. I feel a bit rooted.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. I liked that the spiral notebook we had with all the collected readings.
Yes.
It's a little bit of history, it's a little bit of vocabulary, it's a little bit of kind of spiritual reflection, and then there's kind of a lot of different ground that we get to cover together.
Yeah.
So is there anything in particular as you think of, Father Curbs' biography or his writings and reflections, or you go through the history of the community and the spirituality that we've developed with this charism? Is there anything that surprised you, or is there something that stuck out to you as particularly impactful or kind of took root with you?
Determination, I think.
Yes.
It's the thing that struck out when I was reading his biography. Nothing was going to stop him. He knew what he's being called to do, and by golly, he was going to do it.
Yeah.
And it kind of gave me insight on who Viatorians are today. No, not just reading his biography, but also all those other readings in that binder. It gave me a sense of the personality of the Viatorians and how they see themselves and how they fit in to ministry and how they see themselves called, which is something I did not know before. I think that's the thing mostly that struck me is, okay, now I see connections. And I didn't see that before. And now I see why the Viatorians' charism is what it is today because of what happened in the past. And it makes a whole lot more sense now.
Yeah. Trying to work with the documents and the readings to sustain our social media presence, I'm often looking for compelling quotes from Father Curbs and from our documents that I can post on social media and maybe catch someone's eye, and maybe it snowballs into association or religious life down the road. But as you talk about resilience and that steadiness that Father Curbs had toward his vision of his charism, there's one point where he says, we'll arise again, knapsacks on our back, to seek further trials. And you can kind of hear a little bit of caginess in the sense that, like, he knows it's going to be hard, but he's not going to give up. And sure enough, he made it all the way through to the local bishop, and then to Rome, and now to all of these provinces and foundations around the world. And it's cool to trace that all the way back in that way.
He had a real sense of humanity and the reality of the world.
Yeah.
And he knew how to deal with it.
Yeah. And he dealt with a lot, for sure. What do you remember from your readings, from our discussions, Jen? What sticks out to you?
It's the foundation. I always think back to the foundation of Father Louis Curbs. It's the teachings that he had and that the Viatorians use today. He was, a man of faith and passion and prayer. And I really feel like the Viatorians, they live out that the exact same way that he did.
Yeah, you see in the early vision of going to help these under-resourced parishes and these priests who are struggling on their own without partners to do ministry with and to raise up schools for these rural kids who are being underserved. It's like easy to connect the dots forward to the schools that we lead today and the way that associates are welcome in the ministry and community life alongside the brothers. And you can kind of see that arc fit together when you sit and study and discuss like we had the chance to do.
And it's more than that too. Is the foundation is living the gospel.
Yeah.
I also, working in the high school, we really follow I love it that we have the quotes of Father Louis Curbs. Like, he is a role model, and we'll get a sweatshirt or a shirt and it has a quote from Father Louis Curbs, which I think is wonderful for the community and for the children to see that this was a really big part of how the Viatorians started out.
Yeah, and I think back to when I was a student, some of that was fairly limited in some ways, and I've seen it grow as I've gone back as an adult, now working with people in the school, and then seeing the way that VYC has helped teenagers go even deeper into the Viatorian identity and commitment. You have young people who are calling themselves Viatorians while they're teenagers or college students, even before they get into adulthood and think about larger vocational stuff too.
Yes, and I do feel that when I was in the high school, you didn't hear a ton about Father Louis Curbs. I didn't know the history. I really didn't know who he was. So the fact that they are really teaching the children now where our community came from, I think it's been really nice for the children to understand. And I think the vocation for the kids to do, the VYC has been a wonderful opportunity for them.
For sure. And the way that you can work those pieties into the spiritual life of a place like St. Viator High School, where we're invoking Father Curbs' name in prayer, and we're using the Adored and Loved Be Jesus motto at the end of our prayers. It just kind of builds it into your spiritual awareness, and it becomes a part of your prayer life in a really rich way. So we've done these 8 meetings in these 2 years of formation and discernment. And now we're at this point where we're invited to commit to our association with them. How did you guys think about this question? Was it something that you had any doubts or concerns about? Is there something that made you really excited and eager? What went into your process of actually completing the discernment and going up to this moment where we have an opportunity to commit as lay associates?
I really, after the 2-year discernment, I did have no doubts. I was really excited to still become a Viator associate. I just think it has broadened my faith to where I didn't know it could go. And being at the school, I love to serve the community. And that means serving the children. It means serving the faculty and staff. And I'm proud. I'm proud to say that I will be a Viator associate. And I've learned a lot from it. And I just want to go out more and tell people of what a wonderful situation, wonderful process I had with it. And there are things that I do now that I probably wouldn't have done before. Like, I want to help more, the unfortunate. I go to Bessie's table now, serve people their dinners, and there's just certain community service that I really think is important for me to do. And I always feel good about doing it after I've completed the task or the job. So going forward, I just like serving the community. I serve the children. I serve the Viatorian people, and I feel really good about it.
My thoughts beforehand, before applying, I pretty much decided at that point, I'm going to go through with it for sure. And so, no, there's no doubts. Of course, having been a pseudo associate for
an associate in law or something.
Yeah, an associate in law for that amount of time, it just seems like this is just formalizing what already is.
And I have a lot of role models that I followed, and the support I've gotten through the process. My husband being one of them. He has come to all the events with me and has been very supportive and encouraging. Father Dan Leiden was another person that really helped me through it and was excited for me, wrote another recommendation, as well as Father Charlie Bolzer. So I feel good about my commitment that I'm going to do in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Congratulations, both.
Oh,
Thank you.
What would you say to someone who is maybe thinking about following in your footsteps? Because when you talk to other Viatorians, whether in religious life or association, we often hear these stories of like what I think of as the Viatorian nudge, where someone like Charlie Bolzer or Dan Leiden or even maybe Barb Scherzo
Yeah.
will give you a little poke or jab in the direction of something that they think is rich and life-giving. And you end up taking a chance on it and finding, wow, this really is great. Well, now you as associates may have that opportunity to do something for a friend or a coworker as you kind of spread the word. So what would you say to someone who is maybe considering being a part of the Viatorian community? How would you encourage them, or what insight or advice would you give them as they think about it or pray about it and maybe consider becoming a Viatorian themselves?
I think it's really important. What you put into it is what you will get out of it. I think it's a serious commitment that you have to take it as a serious commitment. You have to go through the readings and you have to read it. I highlighted. I learned a lot, but I knew it was also a commitment that I had to do. So I do believe what you put into it is what you'll get out of it. And I had a mentor as well, like Kathy Abrahami. She helped me with questions I had about the readings. She guided me to, certain part of the readings. People recommended what was a good thing to go to that you'd get a lot out of it. The prayer services I went to, the Advent prayer services, the Easter vigils, those were really important things to go and see what they were about and learn about all the other Viatorians and with social events that I didn't know. So I really believe the more you put into it, the more you'll get out of it.
Well, I would agree with that. And I think, too, before that, I think the question I would ask is, what is their motivation? Is it with the intent of living the gospel and truly doing things to live the gospel? And is your philosophy like that of the Viatorians? Is there a compatibility there? And being ready to work, not do something, not just have the title. And those are the big things, I think. It's the commitment and the motivation and the actual doing.
Yes, and faith has played a huge role in it for me.
Yeah.
That you have to keep the faith, and I pray about my faith, and I feel like my faith has gotten a lot stronger since I've done this discernment.
Oh yeah, it's a definition of living the gospel is having faith.
Right,
and you can't do one without the other.
Yes.
I think often of something that Barb said to us on the podcast about how her life in the Viatorian community, when she has a frustration with something going on in the church or something going on in the world, coming to the Viatorian community and our spirituality and community life is what kind of resets and renews her. And I think one of the great things too is that even if she doesn't realize she's doing it, her participation in it is doing that for those around her as well. And I think that's what makes our community life and spirituality great, and what sends us out to do good ministry in the ways we volunteer or work with young people on behalf of the community and living out our charism.
I also think it's wonderful how you're not a priest, you're not a brother, you're a deacon, but you still there's something out there that you can still do and have a title like a Viatorian associate. And I never experienced that. I thought religious life was just about priesthood and being a deacon, and the fact that you're a lay person and you can still spread the word, I think is a wonderful thing to do in life.
And I think, at least for me, part of it was during my younger years, just seeing the problems of the world and wanting to do something about it, realizing I'm just one little cog in a very big wheel, and there really isn't much I could do about this bigger thing. But in doing things like working at Firehouse or the food bank and that kind of thing, it's what I can do. It may be a little thing, but it's important too, and it does affect the people that you work with. And that's where you start. You really can't do anything about the big picture until you start dealing with the pieces of it.
That's all for this episode of Viatorian Voices. We'd like to thank Jen and Larry for their witness, and we pray their Viatorian life following association commitment is rich, fulfilling, and the fuel to ignite their service of others. Viatorian Voices, Conversations on the Way is a production of Viatorian Vocation Ministry. The Viatorians are professed brothers and priests, together with women and men lay associates, who proclaim Jesus Christ and his gospel, and raise communities where faith is lived, deepened, and celebrated. In the footsteps of Venerable Louis Querbes, and under the patronage of Saint Viator, we strive to do everything well, so that through us Jesus may be adored and loved. This includes lay association, a vocation for lay people wishing to share in the ministry and community life of the clerics of St. Viator. Prospective associates apply through a Viatorian associate brother or priest, who attaches their application to their own letter of recommendation. Those accepted are considered pre-associates and enter into a 2-year process of formation and discernment with a regional formation team. Associates are expected to live out the Viatorian spirituality and charism in their Catholic lives of faith, engage significantly in Viatorian prayer and community life, and actively serve others and the Church. For more information, ask a Viatorian associate, brother, or priest, and start a conversation. To learn more about our community, visit Viatorians.com or follow us on social media at Viatorian USA. Young adults seeking to connect with faith-filled peers can request to follow at Viatorian YA on the Way on Instagram, where our young adult community is building new pathways for walking together in faith. Those seeking support and accompaniment in exploring God's invitation for them are invited to reach out to Vocation Ministry. Send us a DM on social media or email us to start a conversation. Remember, you can help us tell the Viatorian story by rating our podcast in your favorite app, sending this episode link to a friend, and praying for and encouraging young men considering Viatorian religious life. On behalf of Brother Peter and the Viatorian community, I'm Pre-Associate Dan Masterton. Venerable Louis Querbes, inspire us. Saint Viator, pray for us. Adored and loved be Jesus.